We know that they tried to remove many saints. Now there are spiritual leaders. They are also being hindered, but they still continue to work. The more energy that swirls in this negative aspect, the more they understand that they are acting correctly. It means we are moving correctly. Unfortunately, in many cases, wisdom is manifested through suffering. The sum of all technologies is mastery. Samadhi is I know and I know nothing. I am and I am not. You see? How this thin border, to explain this in words is impossible, but in this state you become the creator. If you are conscious of this, then, of course, it is a high level. Look how beautiful it is here. Do you see these plants here? These are parasitic plants, but if they weren't there, there wouldn't be a sense of the forest's wholeness. You see? In the modern world, what do people want to get rid of? Microbes. But if it weren't for microbes, we wouldn't have evolved. It's all very connected. When I'm with you, I don't want to talk about anything. I understand that we all strive for enjoyment. I realize every time that this enjoyment happens when there is no conversation, when there is no communication. Why do people today need others to tell and prove something? Whereas true enjoyment happens when a person is silent and can simply walk with someone and not talk about anything, and enjoy together at the same time. Enjoyment is an experience. You feel good. When we want to say something, we switch to the mental plane and we lose the feeling of joy. Look, there is a feeling of joy, an ineffable feeling of joy. You just rejoice and that's it. As soon as you try to understand why you have this joy and begin to analyze your thoughts, the joy ends. You go into the process of judgment, reasoning, analysis. That's it. The feeling is lost. Therefore, naturally, silence and peace are the only things that are truly important for a person. Peace and quiet. Our mind, the mental plane, says, well, how can we just have silence and peace? We need to do something. We need to move. We need to change this world. We need. In the end, no one does anything. By and large, as soon as he tries to do something, he wants to sleep. He lies down to sleep, and there is also bliss. By and large, silence and peace are in a dream when there is no personality. All problems are personal, actually. If we talk a lot like I am now, we make even more mistakes. Because we cannot convey the feeling of bliss and joy with words. We'd just be beating around the bush. I often talk about this. The feeling of the presence of this sense of an experience, when you want to be silent, just be silent and sit down. And you don't need anything else. You feel good. If that's what we're talking about. When I started practicing, I realized that the depth of inner peace is the goal. Only when a person is in peace, when he feels that everything is in order inside, only then can he enjoy. I have often told you how long I practice, how many hours I sit. And once you told me, the most important thing is service. At that time, it was not clear to me. How can service be most important? The most important thing is probably how I feel. Oh, yes. Then indeed, this thought that you mentioned, it was in my head, and this understanding was revealed. I now understand that only when a person goes beyond himself, only then he will truly stop suffering. While he is suffering, no one cares about him. It's the ego which is suffering, and when he gets rid of the ego, then he starts. Can you explain what you meant when you said that service is important? When we perform some action, we seek a result from this action. We wait for the result. As a rule, we want to be praised, we want to feel good, we want this action to bring us good, and so on. We perform an action that ultimately brings us good. Maybe not immediately, but gradually. But when a person performs an action in the direction of service and does good, or creates favorable conditions for others, he enjoys it tens of thousands of times more. Because goodness from the whole world comes to him, and he enjoys the fruits of his actions. Of course, we can say that service is something you do for others, but in the end, it is for you. Okay, let it be so, even if it is so, but it is better than nothing at all. Then because the principle of service also lies in the fact that by creating conditions for others, you take responsibility for yourself. Because if you cannot help someone, it means that you are in a bad way. Simply put, if you want to help someone, you must first do something for yourself to be a resource for them. And this resource is then passed on partially. Let's say you have fully recovered. Here you meditated, charged yourself to 100%. You exclaim, "I'm ready to give 50% to this world." And then you will have 50% left. And by the end of the day, you feel tired because you have given away a lot of resources. But if you charged yourself to 150% and you gave away 50% or 70% and kept the rest for yourself, this should not be calculated specifically, of course, in percentages. Because when you are in service, you are constantly in touch with the higher power, and this higher power nourishes you. Regardless of whether you are afraid or not afraid, you will be given energy. Because you are doing good in this world, giving this good. However, there are, of course, different forces that try to interfere with you at first. Or not at first. The more good you do, the more the darkness begins to swirl. These are two forces, two energies. This is already your personal test. We know that these forces tried to remove many saints from this plane. They interfere with them. Now there are spiritual leaders. They are also being hindered, but they still continue to work. Because they know that this could be a test. This may also indicate that they are acting rightly. You see, the more energy that swirls in this negative aspect, the more they understand that they are acting correctly. It means we are moving correctly. If nothing happened in response, then that would mean something was wrong. It is important here that a person who is in service does not forget about the most important principles. When you are engaged in service, you use your tool. The instrument is your body temple, your consciousness. 3 levels of consciousness. You use them. For this, they need to be clean. To do this, your consciousness must be so powerful, developed. In order for it to be developed, it is necessary to cleanse the body temple because of toxins, dirt, and so on. That is, you need to lead a correct, yogic, healthy lifestyle so that you can engage in service. I realize through practice every time that, as you often say, there is nothing else, only I am. And I realize that the relationship we have is also a relationship with our own selves. Yes, true. We talk about how to properly treat the Master. This is a difficult question, but every time I realize that a relationship with the Master is a relationship with oneself, I observe that there are cases where students get into a conflict with the Master. I have been thinking about this myself for a long time. Sometimes even I found myself in situations where I didn't like something. Then I asked myself the question if I accepted this Master, if I consider... I really went through many phases that were of a very high criterion, which determined who could be an authority in my life. I then realized that any conflict with the Master is an internal conflict of that person. Can you explain this a bit? A master, if we are talking about a true master, this is a mirror. This is your mirror. Everything you see in the master, you see inside yourself. If this person understands, then he moves correctly. The master will always create conditions under which you will have to engage in self-exploration and cleanse yourself of what you possess. If, let's say, the master sees some vice in a person, and he knows that it hinders him from evolving further, he will definitely create conditions under which this will come to the surface. You see, this is the work of the master. It is unpleasant. By the way, for the master is unpleasant to a greater extent because he feels compassion towards the person, but he knows that trying to extricate it another way cannot work. Then he provokes the situation. He doesn't need to do anything special. His consciousness swirls the energy in such a way that a situation occurs where a person is forced to get to know themselves more deeply. And the ego, the person's personality, the student says, "This master did it. He is to blame. I am very good. I am cosmic. I am divine. What right did he have? He is a nobody." Here it begins. Over time, life unfolds in such a way that understanding comes. Unfortunately, in many cases, wisdom is manifested through suffering. I must say, when we met, it really happened by chance. At that moment, indeed, there was a huge life experience, let's put it that way. I am not a person who was born here. I was born in Serbia and have been living in the West for 17 years. I was involved in martial arts, and there the most important principle is objectivity. You may think you are the strongest person in the world, but when you compete, your illusion quickly disappears, and you receive a very severe punishment if you are not objective. The principle of objectivity is very important to me. When I met you by chance, if there are any coincidences in life at all, I was at a seminar. I saw that people around were very amazed, with great respect. Honestly, this bothered me. At that moment, I was disappointed in all the authorities I had met, I must say that. Just disappointed. Felt like I didn't belong to anything. Not because I am the best, but simply because there are no real authorities. When I met you, I was skeptical about it. This, by the way, is very correct. But in reality, I underestimated the opinion of these people. It simply didn't matter. Back then, it was my own opinion which meant the most to me. Because you were an authority for yourself. Yes, you can say that. When we met, people then, when the seminar ended, began to ask questions. Even for me, it was difficult to ask a question. I think, why would I ask? Who is this person? This particular man came, whom others believe, and he himself asserts that. Why would I? But I still came respectfully. There was still respect, from man to a man, person to a person. Thanks be to God, your parents raised you well. I came, I asked a question, and I think it was the most important moment. I asked a question that only a person who had the same life experience as me could answer. You never had such a life experience, but you nevertheless answered very specifically and clearly. Even the first word you said to me, I think that was it. The question now arises, how can a person who does not possess exactly such specific experience answer this experience? The sum of all technologies is mastery. When a person possesses the sum of all technologies, he possesses mastery. If we are talking about the master, someone is doing something, for example. The master of martial arts possesses not only one style, but many styles. And the combination of these styles gives rise to a new direction, where it applies all these techniques very beautifully. The sum of all our incarnations is our personal experience. I am just giving an example. When you live many, many incarnations of life, you gain wisdom. This wisdom allows you to see the depth of the soul of each person. When I, for example, see what is truly important for a person, when I see it, and I see it from within myself, I realize unity with that person. I don't need to know what you were specifically doing, to look through a third eye, to observe, to draw conclusions, and then to give you an answer. This answer comes from the Spirit. The answer gives you superconsciousness personally. The task of every person is to be in this superconsciousness. Simply put, there is the Spirit Comforter. In Christianity, there is the concept of the Spirit Comforter. In Islam, there is also such a concept referred to in another way. This is when no one can help a person, no one can say a word to him. But through some person, the Spirit itself does this. It's not that the person doesn't understand. A strong enough personality is needed for the Spirit to work through them like that. I'm just giving an example now. If all this is left, when a person is in God in the Spirit, then he definitely speaks exactly what resonates in the heart of another person. It happens from heart to heart. Then it touches from within. The Spirit is also present in you. When the Spirit is connected with the Spirit, from cosmic consciousness to cosmic consciousness, it touches everything, everything inside you, your entire being. And then the mechanism of rapid evolutionary growth is activated. Because at that moment, forces are activated within you. They were dormant. Why were they dormant? Because there is a personality that says, no authorities for me. I don't trust anyone. I know why you don't trust anyone. Because you have gone through quite a difficult path. Heavy, even life-threatening. But eventually the time comes for... And this time does not require any special conditions. It's question-answer, that's it. And just like that, the epiphany occurs. Something actually happened that not so much forced you as just stopped you. Let's speak frankly. You stopped. You just turned around 180 degrees. What you, let's say, did for work, owned before, who you communicated with, you turned it around exactly 180 degrees. And even, I think, your loved ones, some acquaintances or friends, it always happens like this. They say, where on earth did you end up? You were completely different. You were one person, now you are another. You understand what I'm talking about. They told me the same thing. Therefore, the knowledge of your life that you speak of does not require the specifics. It is a deep understanding of the question of what is really important to you, what you need. And even with this, in principle, you can stop. So a shift, a complete shift of your system has occurred. And then you work. By and large, if I'm honest, I did the job I needed to do. It already depends upon you whether you want to move in this direction or in another. The question you asked concerns all people in general. Of course, some people have situations that are less significant if compared to your situation. But for each person, their own problem is always more important. Let's have a walk that way. For masters, there are no problems of their own. I know there are great teachers who continue to suffer. They took on karma. For example, Ramakrishna died of throat cancer. But is this a problem? He lives in a family. He has loved ones, a family, as in a spiritual family. Sri Ramana Maharshi too, for example, with a different problem. In this same way, for example, Aurobindo also departed. Why does this happen? Because they took karma upon themselves. But they did not consider it a problem because they knew what they were doing. They knew for what purpose they were doing it. They understood what good it would bring even now. These great teachers in the world have left a huge amount of knowledge. They have uplifted many people, and they have departed from problems, so to speak. This is external, but in fact these problems did not concern them. Because the greatness is different. He is consciousness, and the body is just a tool. But for an ordinary person, some people ask the question, and what about him, the yogi? Why did he die from some disease that he couldn't just... He just didn't need to do it. Another matter is that maybe it makes sense not to let it come to that. It already depends on one's tasks. Now you have an understanding. Now you already have experience, and before this you said that you often find yourself in a state where your being becomes active, but not that of the personality, but the essential. And we need to become established in this. This is a very subtle system, a very subtle boundary, but it is also great that even what is most important here is somewhere down there, compared to what can happen or happens when a person is in samadhi. Samadhi is, I know and I know nothing. I am and I am not. You see? How to explain this subtle nuance in words? That is impossible. But in this state, you become a creator. If you realize this, then, of course, it is a high level. You see, from such things, we immediately rose up again.
Yes. I'm thinking about this in particular right now. People who may have no connection to spirituality will be watching us. Just like me. When I met you, it was actually the first time I heard that there is such a thing as a master of yoga. I thought yoga was some kind of activity like Pilates, stretching.
This is indeed the case.
I was just interested why people who told about you, that you would be having a seminar, were so amazed. I wondered, and this was really my ego, thinking, who is this person? I thought at that moment that I already knew a lot about life. And when I met you, what I liked at first was that you did not smile, like in many spiritual practices today. They are all about love, about it's all so good, we are all one. The emphasis is all on that, and yet we all still encounter real life. You still have to pay for electricity, you have to eat, and it seems like these types of people are gone astray, let's put it that way.
Gone astray.
Yes. And I liked it at first that you didn't smile at all, meaning you were serious. And indeed, when the seminar took place, which I didn't understand at all, you said, now you need to practice 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the evening. I thought, well, this, pardon the word, is crazy. This is crazy. Who can do that these days when everyone is selling something that needs to train for 15 minutes and get results? Everyone sells something quickly. Everyone wants it quickly. Here a person comes and speaks such, excuse me, insolence in my understanding.
He's taking our life away from us.
I liked it because I am a person who, like all of us, we all seek something easy in life, but no one achieves it so quickly. This doesn't exist. There's nothing easy in this life. There is still a process. As an athlete, I understand that getting the result, a person cannot become a world champion just because he has a desire. He must exchange something for this. I really like that you said that here you need to put in the work. So there are no promises here, you just need to work.
Yes, of course. What promises can there be? It's a personal matter for everyone. When you were practicing martial arts, you trained for 4 to 5 hours, or maybe even 7 to 8, you see?
Yes.
And you only had time to eat and come home, relax, and somehow speak with loved ones. Professional sports require time. You were in the gym all this time training.
I live this.
Yes, live this. If we want to achieve cosmic consciousness, we must lower our consciousness to some material level, and then spend 15 minutes practicing and telling God that we love Him. Everything is fine, and we are down here on this plane for now. You are up there, so to speak. Nothing will come of this. We must work on ourselves. And this is indeed a duty. Nowadays, many bloggers and psychologists say that the word must is not good. All right? Then there's nothing that can somehow motivate a person for this duty. Why do they say that? I disagree with that. Because they say it's coercion. Must, as if someone is forcing us. So we don't want to do anything at all, and leave us alone. Okay, we won't say that someone should do something. Let them do what they want. But they also continue to suffer and to be dependent upon external circumstances, on medications and many other things. If we want to get out of all this, and we must get out, here it is again, we must. We must understand what we need in this life. Of course, the system itself requires at least an hour and a half in the morning and evening to practice, because this is the minimum time needed for our brain to calm down. If, for example, a person can calm down in 5 minutes, then he can practice for 1 hour. 5 minutes for calming the brain, mind, turning inward. The 7th Kriya stage will take up the rest of the time, for example. You do these pranayamas and receive the effect. But it doesn't happen that way. People require a long time to calm down. That is why practice increases, because it requires time for the calmness of the mind, for the turning of consciousness inward. I'm saying that in the reticular formation, there is a region that deals with external scanning. This external scanning does not calm down. When a person who practices, let's say, wants to enter a state of meditation in some way, he cannot do it, because it takes 15 to 20 minutes to simply sit and calm down. Here is the technology we are talking about. We call it Kriya. It is related to the fact that we, using the scientific method of concentration, can, with good practice, enter a state in 3 to 5 minutes. And with even better practice, it happens like that. And at a high level, a person never exits the state. He integrates himself back into this life, being in constant meditation. Being even in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he interacts with people. And some who do not know say, "What is he smoking? He is constantly in some kind of, look, it's like he's stoned." But this person is in a state. And an even higher level is when a person plays, jumps, hops, does whatever, but he is always in samadhi. This is a high level. It all depends on consciousness. Of course, honesty towards oneself and towards the task you are engaged in is number one. If we, let's say, think something up for ourselves and believe in it, engage in it, but in fact the results are different, and we think that the results should be something else, it is already a problem of the mind. And no one promises anything to anyone. In order to boil a kettle on a very good electric current, let's say, it takes from 5 to 7 minutes on average. I'm exaggerating. To enter a state of calm and peace, you need practice. Do you do it in a second, in a minute, in 5 minutes? Or do you do it over the course of 9 days and still can't enter into it? All thoughts wander. Our task is to reach the stop. This is called a mental pause. We need to calm the mind. There will be one who will realize this tranquility, and there will be one who will realize that personalities do not exist. A mental pause is the absence of emotions, absence of body, absence of mind, absence of personality. Spiritual practice begins only with this. I just don't talk about it because people think, oh, if that's the case, then that's a long way, and so on. Actually, no, it's not a long way. Science and Kriya Yoga allow a person to use our brain in the right way, from a different angle, figuratively speaking, and then everything happens. It happens. You have entered this state many times, and you didn't always even anticipate it. You were practicing, and then suddenly, it happens. That is why I say meditation happens. It can happen at any moment.
Each conversation with you really expands into a cosmic understanding. When I first met you, I was just an ordinary person, like most people who will be watching this now. Not your students, they already know. But if an ordinary person, like I was 5 years ago, one who lives by completely different values, And not only him, but the whole world lives by different values. Materialism. Today, success is measured in materialism. Often in the first few years when I was practicing, people would say, well, where are the results? Where are the results? Before that, you were very clear. You were even strict. You did this and that. But still, from the beginning and until the moment I met you, I felt that I was not fully enjoying life as I wanted to. There were still moments where I was suffering for some reason. Someone could upset me or something. I thought I wanted to be absolutely happy 24 hours a day. I think I deserve it. I want it. What is the meaning of happiness?
All people deserve it, but not everyone wants it.
I really wanted it. I had everything that people live and die for today. There were cars, a house, money, youth, clothes. I don't know, all the criteria by which a person evaluates today that he is successful. The criteria by which he evaluates that he should be happy. Even people who have everything cannot say that they are happy. How are you unhappy? You have everything. And I was that person, really. I was happy with life, really. I was happy, lived comfortably, everything. But I knew that deep happiness is joy. It's like a child.
Yes.
It's enthusiasm in life, something beyond all of this, what people consider happiness. At first, really, I encountered obstacles. The people who were around me, they would say, where are the results? Where is it? But inside myself, I still felt that this is it, that this is the teaching. Can you say how this is connected to everything in life? We are now talking about terms that I also did not understand back then. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Samadhi in general, Sanskrit. I also did not understand it then. But I still felt that there is something here. I must work with it. And I trust myself. If I don't trust myself, how can I trust anyone else? Can you explain why this is important precisely because of this worldly happiness that I now understand? Can you explain all these technologies, techniques that we are engaged in to a person who knows nothing about yoga, who even thinks it's nonsense?
First of all, we must understand that our whole life depends on something that we do not see and do not understand. The world just happens. When we chase after fame, God forbid, or when we chase after money, when we chase after some worldly wealth, trying to improve our lives, we still face some force that either helps us or hinders us. This is energy. This is information. This is providence. This is fate, if you will. This is karma. Here is a set of different terms. And what to make of it? When we really want something, we face the fact that we cannot achieve it. Then we start to think that there is some force that we need to take and tame. By the way, there are quite a few people over this period of our life, the Middle Ages, if you will, and in our time already, they dedicated their whole life to mastering this force. And they didn't succeed in anything. Because for every force, there is an even greater force. If we speak about the need for strength to solve some of our material problems, this is one level of strength. If we talk about the power that controls everything and decides whether we need this or something else, then we need to understand what kind of power this is. All yoga is built in such a way as to reach a level of direct communication with this force. There are two options, the spiritual path and the non-spiritual path. Spiritual path is yoga. It is cosmic knowledge, which is not a religion, not some kind of confession. It is cosmic knowledge that allows a person to master this power and direct it in such a way that there is goodness left in the world. Bring benefit to people, to yourself, to people in any case. And the non-spiritual path is magic. But magic does not allow a person to rise to very high levels of this power. It has an average level, lower level of strength, control over elements, events, and so on. We don't need to go there. It's a big problem. We have already been there. You see? Many incarnations ago, perhaps. Therefore, it is necessary to understand that being in the world, respecting the laws of this world. But in order to truly love this world, one must have more strength, more energy, because people always dislike something. They don't like their salary, they don't like their circumstances, they don't like... because they are guided only by reason. A person who has gone through a difficult path can sit at home in not very good conditions or very bad conditions and enjoy himself, because he knows that things can get even worse. Everything is relative. I am not currently calling on people to, but there should be reasonable asceticism. Sai Baba says, lower your ceiling of desires slightly. Do you have a car, a good car? Why do you need a better car? You use it to drive. Fine, if you have such a desire to buy an expensive car, go on, buy it, but do not forget yourself in this car. Do you understand what happens? There was a case when a person bought a very expensive car, and his little child accidentally scratched it, and the father almost killed this child for this car. What nonsense, right? In answering this question, here is one very important point. We need to understand who we are in this life. It is necessary to understand why we came into this life. People do not always understand this. They do not understand. They are all afraid of death. But when someone close is dying, or they simply see that someone is dying, they say, this is with them, that is there. We will all be fine. But they continue to die every day because they are getting older. And we must understand that all this is coming to an end. And what's next? What is the goal further? This world will disappear. It will simply disappear. It will never be. As soon as you close your eyes and fall asleep, the world disappears. Can we say that at this moment we possess something? Where is your bank card in this moment? Where is your real estate in this moment? You are just sleeping. There's nothing. And sleep is a short death. Death is a long sleep. And where does it all go? And when you never return in your life, let's say, to Serbia, to Marbella, to Sochi, wherever we are now, it doesn't matter. Where will you go? If you once, having left the body consciously, in meditation, realize yourself as a free being, I assure you that you will never be attached to what is happening in life. This is such a great feeling of freedom, incomparable with anything else. You came here for this, because your whole life is not freedom. All your life is suffering and struggle. But a person does not want to fight. You came into martial arts, you continue to fight. You prove to yourself and to the whole world that you can do something. We did not come here to fight. We came here to be an expression of divinity. But in order to do this, one must feel the sense of joy of freedom. People are not free. In their nature they are free, but living by the mind, they are not free. As soon as you reach a state of consciousness that you are, the body below, figuratively speaking, lying or sitting, but you exist, boundless possibilities of your existence open up. If we return to the body, our mind says, oh, now I can quickly learn languages, or something else. It is trying again to steer us back towards his attachments and get us to somehow channel all this limitless power into something material, transient, and short-lived. If a person reaches the realization of the higher nature, when he is beyond the limits of the body and mind, he, acquiring this feeling of joy and freedom, begins to understand his boundlessness and divinity. And then the fear of death is removed, attachments are removed, everything is removed. And then he, like a sage, it doesn't work out immediately, gradually, quickly, nevertheless awakens in you. Returning to life, you begin to understand this life, perceive it differently. Therefore, spending time on giving all your strength to the refrigerator and the car is a great folly, in my opinion. There is nothing wrong with this. There must be a refrigerator in the house because of groceries. From the point of view of the Vedic concept, groceries should not be stored in the refrigerator because they already impart a different energy and take away vital forces for digestion. But everything is arranged like this. It is important to understand what we are, at least theoretically, and to understand what the purpose of life is. The leitmotif of life originates from this.
I'm often asked, "Are you happy?" I come to the conclusion that a person cannot be happy if he is not wise, if he does not understand life. He really can only think that he is happy. As I used to think that I was happy, but still somewhere deep inside, I realized that I was not happy. I truly am happy. I truly am happy because I am on the right path. And somewhere I read in some holy writings, where it is written that the karma that a person receives, that which he encounters, is exactly what he needs. This is the best thing possible. Today we observe that every person wants to be some other person. We observe that 10,000 people are looking at a person who drives a Ferrari, and everyone wants to be that person. Everyone wants to live someone else's life. Maybe I understand it consciously now. I didn't understand it before, but somewhere deep down, I still felt it all the same. But we still meet these people. Sometimes they are our friends, they are our family. Even sometimes they become the love of our life. These are people who do not understand, but we still meet. No matter how much a person does not understand the truth of life, he meets people who do not understand anything at all. And these are people we love, people we respect. What should one do here? How should we regard them as we would a small child? How to relate correctly to a person who is in a different state of consciousness? You've come to such an understanding of the issue that you want to make everyone happy, including yourself to a greater extent. Because in enjoying that everyone is happy, you yourself become happy. And with that, you have come to the principle of unity. It is for this very thing that we practice. You understand that we spend years of our lives not to enjoy ourselves, but to make this world more beautiful. And we will not get anything for it. Moreover, in the modern world, people that are considered anathema, as they say, that is, they are usually insulted, slandered, and so on. So the forces work, and these people still continue, carry on and on to serve this world. Because they know that they come from a completely different world. They view this world from a different level of consciousness. Take, for example, your dear Tesla. How many problems he faced in life, how many obstacles, how poorly he was treated. In the end, everything was taken from him. Nothing remained. Tesla, this is a genius. This was a divine incarnation. Just don't go thinking that you are his incarnation. Today's paradox is that the richest man in the world uses the name Tesla, but no one talks about Tesla himself. Yes, this is the paradox of this life. This is injustice, so to speak, a cosmic injustice. But Tesla, in the grand scheme of things, as a high spirit, he doesn't care. We don't cling to the result, we act. Kriya is action. We create conditions for a person who behaves badly to at least learn something. I have met people who are considered bad people from society's point of view.
But when I spoke with them, conversed on a soul level, they were completely good, because they have a soul. Yes, there are people who no longer have a soul. There are people, some of whom I even know personally have seen, who have committed the act of selling their soul, and that's it, their soul has left them. These are individuals, these are robots, complex biological robots. One can simply sympathize with that soul, which in some way was sold, left. This is a very serious process. And those people you are talking about who do not understand anything and do not want to understand, they have a soul. It is as if the soul is in a prison. And that is why you do this for Atman, for the soul. I was asked the question many times, why are you doing this? You know that some of those who come to the seminar, out of thousands of people, not everyone practices. And you invest yourself as if they were your own practices. But these people were at the seminar and simply, let's say, did not forget, but stopped doing something or do not do it. I know that I am doing this for Atman. I know that this energy will remain in any case, and at some point these people will still, getting onto the path, remember that energy and start moving in the direction of self-development. If not in this life, then in the next life. Therefore, we do this for the following. So that a person at some point activates the resource that naturally exists in him. And here we, let's say, provoke it in a good sense. Just like that, he will become active. You also had the same thing happen. You were ready to start living differently because what you were living for didn't bring you anything good. More than that, it was getting worse and worse and worse. And that's it. You turned inward towards yourself. Your spirit awakened. Your soul is already saying, I'm tired of it. And suddenly they say to you, there is some person who came. You need to go there. Who is this person? I myself know what I need. I came more to see who he is, the one who thinks he knows better than me. Yes. And that's it. There was an Italian who came to India, even when they weren't today's living conditions, to Sai Baba. There was sand. There was even, here you were in the town of Satya Sai Baba. Right now it is very beautiful there. Everything is green, asphalt. And when he arrived, probably in the 80s, he was just looking for a wife. He was told that the best wife is an Indian. Someone told him so. He says, but where on earth is all this? They tell him, go to Sai Baba, there you will find yourself one. All the women there are spiritual. And he arrived in the heat, 45 degrees, arrived in a leather shirt, in leather pants. He did not know where he was going, India. He arrived and sat among the other people, though there were not many there yet. Baba came out and gave the first darshan, then the second and the third. And the man's ego emerged. This is an interesting story. He, unable to bear it anymore, already in such a state when his ego was on the edge, stood up and shouted towards Satya Sai Baba. What am I doing here? Who are you anyway? Why am I sitting here? What is happening? He turned around and left. And when he was in this state, he stumbled, fell, hit his head, suffered a concussion, banged his head against some stone or step. Now I can't say for sure. He was taken to the hospital where he was taken care of by a nurse, whom he later married, an Indian woman. This is what the principle of non-duality shows. This is exactly what it shows. I myself realized through practice that there is really no good and no bad. This is from this understanding. But this understanding is not the last understanding that we have. We really want to reach wisdom, reach consciousness. This is the minor aspect. Look, I agree with you. Wisdom, consciousness, understanding of this question, which leads to wisdom, this is not yet the truth. The truth is still higher. Wisdom is the instrument of truth, figuratively speaking, in the external world. The truth is very elevated. The truth we can understand when we finally leave ourselves in peace. That is, when we do everything possible to stop being a personality. For this, there is meditation. If, let's say, a person is in a cosmic consciousness, all events of this world are understandable to him. If we talk about a person being in a state of wisdom, for example, then he also understands these events, but he still leaves some things for himself as a possibility to comprehend. If a person has lived this life, he is not a wise man. But he lived this life, he has personal experience, he knows that this is how it happens, this is how things go, and he is also a sage to some extent, but at the level of an ordinary person. Our relationships are built on what we understand. The more fully and deeply we perceive this world, the more we understand it. And the more we experience and perceive what's happening, the more we perceive it through our own lens of personal understanding, which then gives us a deeper grasp of what's going on. I'm probably saying this in a complex way. That is, our attitude towards the world depends on our level of understanding and consciousness. When you give an example of someone treating me wrong, I don't care, because I see Atman in it. It is not that I don't care. Yes, that's another question. Look, what can we say or expect from people and how they regard me or you if they don't even respect their parents? They can shout at their parents, they can argue, they can accomplish something. I just know that this happens in the world, when they even insult their mother, call names. These are adults, 20 to 30 years old, 40 years old, dissatisfied with their parents. Well, fine. What did your parents do to you, for example? If you are unhappy with that life, change your attitude towards it. Find a way to rise above it. In the end, this is sacred. These are the people who raised you. Everything is somehow forgotten. And this is all the influence of dark forces. Now a huge number of people simply do not know how to behave correctly. They do not know. They were not raised right. And who didn't raise them? These same parents. That's why from the beginning, Sai Baba paid a lot of attention to the upbringing of children. He raised future parents. They were children once too. He gave them knowledge, then they became adults, got married and gave birth to similar ones, already at a different level of consciousness. Therefore, knowledge is required. As long as there is an opportunity to acquire this knowledge, one must exert all their efforts to spend money on books, on education, on studying all of this, so that our world, our life, can be transformed. We need to know. When a person has knowledge, he always will find a way out. From this state, one's attitude towards the world changes. For example, how can I think poorly of someone if I know what he is? I know why he is like that, and I have compassion for him. Of course, knowledge is not just a mental aspect. It is also perception as a whole, a feeling of love, compassion. This is full knowledge in reality. This is full knowledge. For this, meditation is required, spiritual practice. And then we do not judge anyone. There are events in the world that make us follow these events. Situations arise where we have to do things that we may not want to do, but we are forced to because of such a system. And this is our world. We even accept it in this sense. But inside yourself, you have a different attitude toward this. What example could you give? For example, I have a very large number of people working through our support service, and people beg, "Please, could Master just answer us personally?" Okay, I really want to do this. But if I do this for one person, then tens of thousands of other people will remain unattended to. I do it as much as possible. I still answer everything. I try to answer the questions in these videos. Ilyas asks me the questions that are coming in. But I cannot personally give attention because if I give attention to someone personally, then someone else is left without attention. It's not that I'm special. I'm not special at all. The point is that people have such a perception. But the knowledge that I give, that is given through me, allows a person to stop being dependent on Imram, on some other people. My task is to help people gain knowledge about themselves, so that they, having become acquainted with themselves, stop suffering. And then the world will change. Then our system will change for the better. We must help each other.
I feel that only now our true conversation is opening up. But unfortunately,
Absolutely right. And it doesn't end. Usually, it even happens that when we don't speak, we say more than...
yes, yes. Master, thank you very much for such an opportunity.
I'm sure that your openness will help many. Great.
Many thanks.
Thank you.